I don't need to be the one to tell you that Zoro is an absolute monster. Before Wano, he breezed through every single one of his opponents, and even when he reached the land of samurai, the guy did crazy stuff time and time again. It's pretty clear that besides a select few, Zoro's in contention for the strongest first commander. But this poses a question. How does Zoro face against the top tiers of the world government, the Navy Admirals? Well, in this video, let's see how strong Zoro's strength takes him. While the Admirals haven't had insane showings yet, let's still go over what we've seen from them. Okay, I'll immediately say we're focusing on the current 3 Admirals. It's pretty clear that after their 10-day battle, Akainu and Aokiji are just on another level, you know, the hockey bloom, all that shit. Anyways, this works out perfectly as these two aren't even actual Admirals anymore, so just know that for this video, we'll be focusing on Zoro versus Green Bull, Fujitora, and Kizaru. Now, how strong are these Admirals individually? I know many think Kizaru is the strongest of the 3, acting as Akainu's right-hand man, and this definitely makes sense narratively. If we're going by pure feats though, Green Bull has clearly shown the most, so he's definitely going to set an example for the other two. Whether you think he was telling the truth, Green Bull stated he would never lose to a few Yonko commanders right after no-diffing an admittedly weakened King and Queen. Additionally, you might be able to make the argument that his draining attack just negs King's durability. Right after this, Green Bull goes against base Inu and Neko, Denjiro, Kawamatsu, Raizo, and Shinobu all at the same time, and while transformed, was pretty much no-diffing them as well. What is without a doubt insane is the fact that Green Bull then tanked an advanced conqueror's hit to the back of the head from Yamato, and while he does claim it hurt, he seemed to be pretty much fine. Okay, I'm not saying Yamato and Kaido are anywhere close in strength, but in a similar situation, Kaido one-shot Oden when he hit him in the back of the head, so the fact that Green Bull survived this pretty easily is kind of insane. The only real character that did damage to Green Bull was Momonosuke with his Bolo breath. Green Bull didn't seem to take insane damage from those attacks either, as he then goes to beat Weevil soon after this. And speaking of this battle, it's really hard to say how much of a feat this is for the Admiral, but it is stated that Weevil has similar strength to a Prime Whitebeard. The last thing I want to mention regarding Green Bull is his fight with Fujitora against the Revolutionary Army. While it is stated the two were restricted in that fight because they were in the Holy Land, a team of Sabo, Morley, Lindbergh, and Karasu were able to escape the Admirals and save Kuma at the same time. I'm not sure how much of an anti-feat this is for Fuji and Green Bull, as we really don't know how strong the Revolutionaries are, but if we consider Sabo to be a top tier commander / low Admiral level character, and his teammates to be around the strength of a character like Ivankov, I don't think it's a worse feat in the world to fail in capturing them in a place where, like I said prior, they were restricted. Now let's talk about Marineford, where there is also a few things I want to mention, but not too much. I would argue that besides Akainu, most of the Admirals didn't show insane feats here. Characters like Kizaru were getting matched by Marco in speed and even overpowered to an extent, and most of his attacks were tanked relatively easily by the commander. Now Marco is most likely faster and more durable than Zoro, but it's still worth mentioning that the Whitebeard commanders on multiple occasions were matching the Admirals. We also see Aokiji getting hit by both Jozu and Marco while caught off guard, the former actually making the Admiral bleed, and I think it's fair to say that Advanced Conqueror's attacks from Zoro do more damage than your average Whitebeard commander. The last thing I want to mention is that Kizaru was able to avoid Ben Beckman, debatably the strongest Yonko commander alive, and was able to shoot a full power Yasukani no Magatama at the Heart Pirates. So that's pretty much it. But next, let's talk about my boy, Pirate Hunter Roronoa Zoro. Zoro is pretty renowned for his sheer strength, and in my opinion, considering just raw physical ability, Zoro's up there with the top tiers. Even before Wano, the guy clearly never was at 100%, but was still cutting characters like a mountain-sized Pika in half with relative ease. Once we get to Wano though, bro, my man is absolutely cracked. Zoro one-shot killer, a character who damaged Kaido and completely destroyed Hawkins. You could easily make the argument that Killer is comparable to characters like Queen and Ace, maybe even higher, and Zoro didn't even have one of his main swords on him. He had to steal one of Killer's blades. No Enma, no Shusui. This is especially insane as Zoro hasn't really received a buff at this point since the post-time skip, so you can maybe make an argument that fresh out of post-time skip Zoro was at the level of characters like Year 4th Luffy and Doflamingo. I'll admit though, I don't really believe this. I just think he and the rest of the Strawhats got a plot-induced buff in Onigashima, but again, you could make an argument that he was above Doflamingo and Dressrosa, but I'm not making that argument, but you can make that argument. But I'm not making that argument. So once Zoro received Enma, he became a whole new monster, going on to block a combined ocean sovereignty from both Big Mom and Kaido for a select period of time. Then he made Kaido dodge with an attack that didn't even have Conqueror's Haki associated with it, and then with Ashura he was able to scar Kaido with an Oden level attack. He then beat King in an extreme diff fight, but the main reason it was extreme diff was because 1, King had a broken ass ability with his Lunarian DNA that made him pretty much invulnerable for most of the fight, and 2, Zoro was dealing with Enma nerfing him the entire fight until he got a hold of the blade. So I'd argue that once he obtained Advanced Conquerors, he reached a level way above King's. So this might be a hot take, but I actually think that Ashura and Zoro's final King of the Hell attack are actually both with yonko level techniques. It's still worth noting that even after Kaido tanked it, he still was pretty fine in fighting Luffy, going on to being the Straw Hat multiple times. All I'm saying is, if Zoro was to clash Ashura or his final King of Hell attack against Kaido's basic Advanced Conqueror attack, I could honestly see it splitting the sky. In regards to Zoro's performance in Egghead, we haven't really seen much besides clashing with Kaku and defeating Seraphim Mihawk. There is one debatable anti-feat for Zoro, and that's the fact that Sanji was able to save Edison so fast that he 1 dodged a mid-fire laser beam, and 2 did all this and appeared beside Zoro before the swordsman or anyone else could even react. Now, like I said, this is debatably an anti-feat for Zoro, and while I think Sanji has cemented himself as one of the fastest characters in the series, he's probably not faster than Kizaru, one of the admirals that we're talking about. Now, to finish this off, can Zoro actually beat an admiral? I'll start off by saying pretty much 10 out of 10 times, I just don't see him beating Kizaru at this point. While Zoro is fast enough to hit characters like Flame Off King, I just don't see Kizaru allowing himself to be hit by moves like Ashura or Zoro's final King of Hell technique. And I'm telling you right now, he's gonna need that shit against an admiral. Kizaru escaped Ben Beckman pretty easily, and I just don't see Zoro being able to keep up in an exchange like that. Then there's things like the range advantage, and with speed like Kizaru's, a range advantage is absolutely disgusting. Also, I don't really see Zoro tanking a Yasukani no Magatama at a similar level to Marco, who just ate it up with his Phoenix Flames. Zoro's just gonna have to tank that shit normally, and no matter how much endurance the guy has, multiple laser beams onto your body is gonna fucking hurt. You could make an argument that he could dodge the shots, considering the Heart Pirates never got hit by any of the attacks, but I honestly see if Kizaru spreads that shit across a battlefield, Zoro would only dodge for so long. It's just a bad matchup. Additionally, I don't really care for talking much about Fujitora, as combat-wise, he's easily the admiral we know the least about. All I'll say is, if Doffy can cut his meteors, Zoro definitely can too. Okay, so right now we have Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru pretty much completely destroying Zoro in a fight, in my opinion. And Fujitora is undecided due to lack of information. So that leaves Green Bull, a character who, in my opinion, would actually give Zoro a really good fight. I'll say immediately that if Green Bull wants to fight a character like Zoro, he has to be in his transform state, and likewise, I think Zoro has to be using his King of Hell techniques as well. If we say Zoro and Yamato's base Conqueror's Haki attacks are of relative strength, Green Bull can actually decently tank a lot of the things Zoro can throw at him, as the Admiral won't be caught off guard the same way he was against Yamato. Now, I know a lot of people hate the guy, but I'm gonna say it. I actually see Green Bull winning more often than Zoro in a fight like this. This might be a crazy take, but let me explain. In my opinion, the win conditions for either character in this fight are relatively clear. Zoro needs to hit Green Bull with multiple of his King of Hell techniques or Ashura attacks. He has to go to his yonko level 100% attacks. As I would argue, unless Green Bull has disgusting regen, no pre-yonko level character is tanking those attacks easily. And to be honest, I think it's actually likely Green Bull would be hit by these attacks. Like I said prior, he's shown to be a pretty arrogant fighter. But first, let me talk about Green Bull's win condition. And that's catching Zoro and giving him the same suck treatment he did to characters like King, Queen, Raizo, and Shinobu. Some might argue that there's no way Green Bull would be able to land this attack on Zoro. And yeah, I'd be willing to agree with this if it wasn't for the fact that Green Bull easily caught Yamato, along with base Inu and Neko, Kawamatsu, and Denjiro. Now, you might be one to pose the argument that Yamato didn't really care if they were caught by Green Bull, as Momo was telling them not to fight back and let him take care of this fight. That's a decent argument, besides the fact that Yamato just saw Raizo get one shot by Green Bull, so Yamato knows the threat of being caught. The best argument I have for Zoro surviving this attack if he gets caught by Green Bull is the fact that after Shinobu and Raizo, Green Bull chose to never use the suck ability on any of the other fighters. So you can make the argument that these fighters were negating his suck ability through Haki. This is actually a pretty decent argument for Zoro, and the best retorts I have for this are that Green Bull probably wasn't paying attention to these guys as he was focusing on Momonosuke, who then blasted him with a couple bolo breaths. It's also possible he just can't suck multiple characters at once with the same efficiency as he did to Shinobu and Raizo. All in all, I think this is a close fight, as like I said, if Zoro uses his 110% Advanced Conqueror's attacks, he could possibly take the Admiral out, but it would take all of his power to do so. Like, we're talking another visit from the Grim Reapers sort of vibes. In contrast, even while not completely serious, Green Bull was no different characters like a weakened King and Queen, nearly killed Raizo and Shinobu, and caught every other fighter that opposed him in Wano, only to be brought to a serious point by Momonosuke, someone who ate essentially Kaido's devil fruit. I just don't see Zoro manhandling all these characters even at his max strength. So to answer the question on whether Zoro can beat an Admiral, I think yes. I think he could probably take Green Bull out, but it's like a 2 or 3 out of 10 times type of vibe. Admirals are crazy, man. They deserve more credit. I just personally think Zoro needs a bit more to get to that level. If you enjoyed this video, I urge you to hit that subscribe button. If you're wondering how strong Marco is, check this out, and I will see y'all later.